All right, what's up? What's good? What's happening? What it do, baby? You are tuned in to another edition of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. It's your boy Xavier, aka Zay, aka X. I'm joined by my brother from another. Y'all know him. He's Kory Blackshear, better known as KB. And before we get into the basketball shakeups, KB, I gotta ask, how's everybody doing in Atlanta this morning? Because the Braves absolutely yeah, that was not good last night in the seventh inning. What they did.
Man, it's been like this for the last couple of weeks now. Braves stink. They need to make some moves at the deadline to kind of shake things up because right now it looks like the Phillies are going to catch them pretty easy. They may even catch them by the All-Star break actually just because of the fact that they don't look in sync right now. You even told me a stat the other day about none of the guys hitting over 300, and I thought that was absolutely insane. But if you look at what they are now and what they were, two different baseball teams. Two different baseball teams. I know about injuries and all that stuff, but right now they just look out of sync. So yeah, we ain't really got too much to hitch our wagons on right now.
And the Atlanta Hawks didn't help y'all out too much with free agency so far this week either, but that's all right because the NBA is helping out everybody.
Hey, hey, I ain't want to say it. You said it. That's all that needs to be said. They ain't helping nobody out. We feel very. I'm worried. I'm gonna just say that I'm worried about next season, what it's gonna look like because, like you said, there's a lot of teams that made a lot of moves in the East, particularly, and I think that that's gonna spell a lot for what the Hawks are gonna be faced with next season as far as like their competition.
And we're about to get into some of those moves now, but before we do, we got a special guest joining the show. Devon Ashby is back on the show today, ladies and gentlemen. Dev, what's going on, bro?
How we doing? How we doing? It's good to be back. Good to be back with you, brother.
Yes, sir. Always good to have you in the building. Dev, before we get started, let the people know, man, because you got a new podcast project that you've been working on for the past couple of months or so, and you guys are officially launched within the past couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Talk to us a little about that.
Yeah, so me and some friends are currently working on a big project. We're following local high school football team. So we dropped episode one on YouTube, and yeah, it's gonna be cool. We've been following episode two should be coming out soon, so I'll keep you guys posted on that.
So, what's like the gist of this following? Like, are you guys following them as they go through camps, off-season workouts? Are you just telling different stories about different players and characters on the team? What's exactly going on with what it is that you guys are trying to venture into?
So we're doing it hard knock style. We're gonna be following them through the off season. We're gonna follow them into the season. Um, kind of just the hope, at least on my side, the hope is to tell some individual stories. But from based off the first episode, it's more so hard knock style. Like miking people up and following them throughout the season, like off season workouts when they get the pads in August, and then obviously when the season starts in September.
Man, that's what's up, bro. Congratulations on that. I know you guys are going to do big things with it, and we're definitely going to be locked in, ready for episode two when you guys come out with that.
Got it. Like I said, I'll keep y'all in the lookout.
And we'll make sure that we keep our viewers and listeners on the lookout for everything as well. But one thing that we were not necessarily looking out for happening earlier this week, and that was Jaylen Brown being traded to the Philadelphia 76ers. I was not surprised that Jaylen Brown got traded at all, fellas, but I was surprised that Philly was the team that he got traded to for a variable amount of reasons. Number one, I want to give a shout out to Philly's front office because they never made it known that they were in this sweepstakes. What we heard on Wednesday from Shams Charania of ESPN is that there were 10 to 12 teams that the Boston Celtics were realistically shopping Jaylen Brown around to. He didn't list any of those teams. But did I think Philly was going to be among them? No. And the fact that the Celtics just traded him to the team that knocked them out of the postseason, arguably their biggest rival in the history of the Eastern Conference. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go research that rivalry between the Celtics and the Sixers dating back to the 60s and the 80s and the early 2000s with those battles between AI and Paul Pierce, and to where we are now, to where it's been in the past decade in the Joel Embiid era. I'm not going to call it the process, but in the Joel Embiid era and with Tatum and Brown and that pairing, and Philly finally being able to get over the hump this year after losing to them in several postseasons before. I'm shocked by the fact that he was traded to Philadelphia, fellas, and I'm even more shocked for the fact that all it took to get him there was an older Paul George, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. And KB, that's not even the initial trade offer that was even on the table.
Yeah, the initial trade was even crazier, to be honest with you. And it kind of makes you think about, like, how did we go from the initial trade offer, which I believe was 5 first rounders that they were asking for initially, and I think they even were including VJ Edgecombe. That's exactly what the Celtics wanted in return for it, which, it makes sense, to going from that type of package to Paul George, 2 firsts and 2 seconds. And I really, honestly, I'm still kind of perplexed by the whole thing because I still don't feel like that was the best deal that was out there. For some reason, I feel like that you had some other teams that may have could have offered a package of ready to go starters right now, rotation players, possibly even younger rotation players, some picks that they could have attached to that deal. So I'm kind of, because of the names of the teams that we felt like were included in that list of teams that was interested in getting Jaylen Brown, I think that we could have definitely seen some like other packages. Like, I really am curious to see what was Brad Stevens offered, like, from the other teams in order to get Jaylen Brown, because I think everybody had the same like look of shock when they got that alert on their phone, like Paul George, 2 firsts and 2 seconds. Like, that's all it took to get a former Finals MVP. Like, it just kind of didn't make really much sense because it just seemed like at that point for me that they were just willing to just trade him, because I really don't feel like that was the best deal out there. For some reason, in my heart, I just feel like that there were other deals out there that probably could have positioned the Celtics in a better, for the future, as far as like, getting some more rotation pieces to put around Tatum, to put around, Peyton Pritchard and whoever else they're going to run out there next year. So it just, for me, I just was kind of shocked that Philly, jumped in. But hey, shout out to Daryl Morey for making that deal because, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm still thinking of the past. Shout out to the front office for the 76ers for making that deal because it came out of nowhere. It was one of those things that we were like weren't expecting, but yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, I can tell you now, Daryl Morey was still there. I don't think this deal would have happened because we would have heard about it. That's the most impressive thing about this deal to me is that this came out of left field and we didn't know any rumblings about any of this until the deal itself actually happened. So a huge shout out to the Philadelphia 76ers front office.
Mike Gansey, I'm sorry. Mike Gansey is the president of basketball operations right now. So I got to give him got to apologize on that behalf, give him his credit, because I'm sure that he was one of the ones that was also, one of the biggest voices in getting Jaylen Brown there. Because, like I said, you taking this, for some people, Jaylen Brown was looked at as the best or the second best at worst player on your rival. So you now catapult yourself to the top of the East by just making that deal alone.
And Dev, what I really want to know is, and I'm sure you got these questions too, for this deal to go down, how it went down, what the Celtics got in return, and who they traded him to, what was really going on in that locker room? Like, we had discussions about this when it took place, about Jaylen Brown's comments on Twitch and the live stream right in the aftermath after the Celtics lost to the Sixers in this year's playoffs, blowing a 3-1 lead in the first round, and him coming out and saying that this was his favorite season ever. The fact that that was left so empty-handed, I think that had people in the organization really questioning things, but it's got to be even beyond that. Like, there's something deeper that had to be going on for this to go down how this went down.
Yeah, I have a couple theories on why I went down like this. Like, I don't know if y'all go like what social media rabbit holes y'all go down, but I was going down. I found an interesting theory. Basically, so a lot of people know that the Boston Celtics recently were sold to a new ownership group, and the ownership group in particular make their money through private equity. And so a lot of people are pointing out Jaylen Brown's massive contract, and they were pointing out the fact that, there's like, if you look at it from a corporate thing where, it was going to become too much to justify, and then he was going to get too expensive. And basically what this does is it keeps them good enough that fans will stay into them, that they'll be good in the regular season, but they have a ceiling. And this was just kind of like private equity kind of making its way through sports. And that's one theory. That being said, if we just go to basketball, like the truth always comes out eventually, but like we see a lot of things. I'm kind of surprised it lasted this long in the sense that like there have been rumors for years about Jaylen Brown possibly getting traded, because of a number of things, but I think his value was the highest it was ever going to be this year. So that makes it even more surprising that they didn't get the maximum amount of deal. Like, I mean, we were seeing reports they were asking for like 4 firsts and stuff, and for them to just kind of settle with what they got. So I don't know. I don't know. And then I've seen other theories that maybe Brad Stevens is angry because his whole plan this year probably initially was just to tank, which is what we all thought was going to happen when Tatum was out, and then Jaylen Brown kind of poured cold water on that. So I don't know. It's a whole lot of things out there. All I know is that, like you said, nobody expected the Sixers. I thought, especially considering what Milwaukee was offering, I thought he would be there. And, it just kind of, I don't know. This is going to sting for a lot of Celtics fans. Like, they weren't happy looking at that this morning, or any morning, really.
Yeah, let's get into the whole Milwaukee thing, because now I got to get into another question. What the heck is going on with Brad Stevens in that front office in Boston? KB, we talked about this last week when the Giannis trade went down early last week, and we talked about the proposed trade package that was being reported that the Milwaukee Bucks wanted. So they wanted Jaylen Brown, 2 first-round picks, and 2 of the Celtics' younger players, Hugo Gonzalez and Brian Shireman. And the Celtics, for some reason, were not willing to include Hugo Gonzalez and Brian Shireman in that deal. And as you said, KB, no disrespect to them because they are NBA players, but that is absolutely insane when you consider that they could have landed one of the top 5 players on the planet still in his prime. That is the only way that they would have continued to remain in a championship contention type conversation in my day. I never understood after the NBA finals ended why people still had the Boston Celtics as one of the favorites to win the NBA championship based off of the turmoil that we were hearing that was coming out of there. All the uncertainty about Jaylen Brown's future and different things like that. I guess they were banking on the fact that the Celtics were going to land Giannis, but when Miami got into that thing, Pat Riley made sure he got that deal done. And he sent away everything that he had to send away. I'm sure he would have preferred to keep at least 1 or 2 of those pieces that he sent away, meaning the players. But he did what he had to do to land that superstar. After the Celtics failed to land Giannis, I didn't see what the other plan was for them going into next season in terms of what would keep them into a championship contention conversation. I know they signed Mitchell Robinson this week. That was still not enough for me to say, okay, they're still trying to contend for a championship. So as much credit as we've given Brad Stevens over the years for the moves that he's made, he's got to get the smoke for this, because there's, like you said, KB, there's no way that this was the best offer on the table for Jaylen Brown. And I have to ask the question, like, did you allow your feelings to get in the way over logic on what was best for the team?
Now, I ain't gonna lie. I think that you gotta kind of question it, because a lot of the reason why those trade talks with Milwaukee fell through is because they weren't willing to offer Giannis the contract extension. They weren't willing to do the extension for him, and that was one of the biggest things that he was willing to sign off on the trade. Like, a lot of reports that came out that Giannis was willing to sign off on the trade to Boston had they been willing to give him that contract extension. And then when you're talking about the two young guys, Hugo and Brian Shireman. Like, you have to think about it. Haven't we heard the same story before with Steve Kerr? We've heard these things where they're unwilling to give up young players who may or may not even turn into superstars, because we've seen the same thing with Pods in the failed trade for Lauri Markkanen. We've seen these deals happen over and over, and I think it's something about overvaluing some of these younger guys, because if your thing is to keep the championship window open and alive more than ever, you do not make that deal, because like right now, you are not in the championship contention. You're not in the picture, not from what I look at, because I think all you did was you helped yourself with the first round picks. But outside of that, what did you get? You got a 38-year-old Paul George who may or may not even play a portion of the season. So at that point, you didn't make anything. You didn't do any deals. I mean, yeah, the Mitchell Robinson thing was cool, but all of that is contingent on his health long term going forward, because we know that he was a good he was very well suited for that backup center role in New York. Now he's going into a situation where he may be the starter if you decide to push Kata out of the starting lineup. So when you look at it like that, take out everything that you know about the deal that just happened, and you substitute Giannis into that fold. Now you have a starting lineup that features Giannis and Jason Tatum, and possibly even, I don't know if Mitchell Robinson is still there or not, depending on that deal. But if he is, you run out a very formidable lineup that could go against the Knicks. You could compete against the Knicks. You might even actually, some people may even favor you over the Knicks if you make that deal. Now it looks like, I don't even know if you're going to even be top 5 at this point, because of the fact that so many teams did get better. And if I'm Brad Stevens, I don't know how I'm going to say this. People have given Brad Stevens a lot of credit, as they should, because in the front office, he's done amazing. As a head coach, he was amazing. But at the same time, you'd be remiss to not think that something went wrong in those negotiations, because like I said, I don't believe that was the best deal. I still, to this point, believe that there was something out there that was better. And I think it was something where he was just tired of Jaylen Brown, or the Celtics organization. I heard something about the comments that he made about, him having his best season yet played a factor into it, and it rubbed people the wrong way. I don't know, but it was just something just didn't seem right behind the scenes, because you don't make that type of deal for a former Finals MVP who's in his prime. He's been with the organization 10 seasons. So for me, it just seems like that was it was weird how it all went down, because Jaylen Brown never publicly requested a trade. This was all something that the front office was just doing. They were working, like pulling strings behind the scenes the whole time. Jaylen Brown, not once, no matter if he probably felt it in his heart, he never once asked for a trade from the Celtics. So it just seems weird to me that all of this went down, and that was the haul that you got back, because I don't feel like you're in a better position today than you were 2 days, 3 days, 4 days ago. I think that you're actually in a worse position because of the fact that you're taking a guy in Paul George. Let's just say over the past, 5 seasons, he hasn't been good at all. He's been terrible. Like, especially coming off of last year, the way he went out in that playoffs, especially in that second round, I just don't know how that was the sweetener of the deal. Like, that to me just seems like you were just willing to move off of Jaylen Brown for anything at that point.
So I'm not questioning Paul George's talent necessarily, because I know he's not the player that he used to be. If anything, what I'm questioning is his durability, because people are pointing to the fact that he looked good in that first round against Boston for Philly and that. So let's add some context to that, shall we? Because of a suspension that happened because of use of PEDs, Paul George missed the last 2 months of the season. So he was able to sit out, rest, and get his body right. That turned out to actually be a blessing in disguise for Philly in terms of how the rest of their season was going to go, because he was healthy. If he played in those 2 months, I have to question would he have been able to make it through those 2 months, just based off of what the past 2 seasons have shown us with his injury history overall, but definitely in his time in Philadelphia. But how do I feel about this move in particular, just based off of basketball? I think at best they could be a playoff team, but it would not surprise me, KB, if this turned out to be very similar to the trade that Rob Pelinka with influences from Anthony Davis and LeBron James that happened in 2021 that brought Russell Westbrook to the Lakers. The name value is there, but will the production value be there? I have to question that. Dev, where do you stand on that?
It's two ways. It's two ways I look at this. As far as Paul George coming to Boston as opposed to a Giannis, I think that this is sending a message that it's clearly Jason Tatum's team going forward, and Boston doesn't want anybody to be confused otherwise. Because I think there's something to be said about when two of the top superstars in the game come together in a way that a potentially Giannis and Tatum would. Because I remember I said in our group chat, I was like, I wasn't sure how it would work if those two got together. Not from a talent standpoint, because clearly it's like a top five and a top five talent-wise player. Just the gelling and the cohesion. And I was wondering how it was going to work because, I mean, it's going to take a lot. Somebody's going to have to step back. Somebody's going to have to be Robin the Batman. And so I think in a case with Paul George, you don't have that issue because he's 36 years old. He hasn't been the most durable the last several years. And at this rate in his career, he kind of knows, like, yeah, I'm kind of second fiddle. Like, I'm the guy, the veteran in the locker room. I keep the leadership presence. And all that kind of stuff. But, like, this is Jason Tatum's team. So I think from a standpoint of, like, regular season, they're going to be good. When the playoffs come, that's where I'm going to be like, I don't know. Are they better than the Knicks? Are they even better than Cleveland? Are they better than even somebody like the Pacers who've been to a finals and are going to have Tyrese Halliburton back next year? So,
Dale, before you continue, I got to ask, though, like, what? Okay, I understand we're trying to give respect to what the Pacers did in the 24-25 season. Do we honestly think that just because Halliburton's coming back, that's enough to still try to elevate them into the conversation of the playoffs? Because there's a lot that's no longer on that team that was there with him to help elevate them to that level.
Yeah, that's true. But they do still have, what's his name? They do still have Pascal Siakam. They do still have a couple of the guys who were there, but like, I mean, clearly the Knicks are who you are gonna for really. The Knicks and then Cleveland, just because they're kind of there. Like, you know, they've won 60 games. They were at a conference, whether they got swept or not. They were in the conference finals last year. Like, the Knicks and Cleveland are kind of at the top. Still not sure what Miami's gonna look like yet. So, I mean, the East isn't quite as deep as the West is. So, like, the Celtics are gonna be all right. I don't know what their ceiling is. With Paul George, I think it's much higher had they gotten Giannis, but I don't know. Is really the question, I guess, or the answer. I mean.
So there was one team in there that you didn't mention. We're gonna get to them in the next segment. But before we close out this one, I do have to ask y'all, where do you have Philly currently ranked in the East? Because I was talking to a Sixers fan a couple of days ago about this, and I said, honestly, y'all are the Knicks' biggest competition now, in my opinion. And she was like, I don't know about that. I'm like, do you realize that y'all just got one of the three best two-way players on the planet? Like, he's going to be for you, barring injuries or anything unforeseen. He's going to be for you what your front office at the time thought they were going to be getting in Paul George. He's younger, he's more durable, and he's going to be able to sustain more. And not to mention the fact he brings something that Paul George was not bringing to the table. Championship winning experience. He just won a championship 3 seasons ago in the 23-24 season. He's now bringing that to the table. He knows what it takes to get over the hump. And he was the finals MVP. He was the conference finals MVP of that run too. He was the best player in both of those pivotal series for the Boston Celtics. This is what Philly has been looking for. Somebody who can take them over the hump. People are sitting here questioning, is it Maxi's team? Is it Embiid's team? Is it Jaylen Brown's team? I don't know whose team it's going to be, but I do know that you got a piece in the building who knows what it's like to taste that Larry O'Brien trophy now. And this honestly should be a nightmare for the New York Knicks. Also, when you consider the fact that they added a bench player now like Anthony Simons, who Jaylen Brown played with last season in Boston and said he loved playing alongside Anthony Simons and what he brought off the bench to that team. And also, there are some interest there in a certain 41 going on 42-year-old superstar who is out on the market. And we have officially been told Philly could be in play for him as well. I got really high hopes for the Philadelphia 76ers going into next season. Y'all tell me, am I overblowing this or am I right where I need to be with my thought process on this?
Nah, I think you're right. I think at worst, like right now, at worst, like just off of what we know, they're number. If you want to say they're number, I'm gonna say they're number 2, just because I'm gonna give New York some love since they've actually proven to do it. And a lot of it is going to be contingent on health as well, especially with Joel Embiid, because he does still play. If he's that X factor for the season, he stays healthy at least 3/4 of the season. I think they make some.
Is it really still contingent on Joel Embiid's health, though, KB? Considering that Jaylen Brown, just look at it like this: we saw the leap that Tyrese Maxey took. We expect him to take a bigger leap next season. Mm-hmm. We expect VJ Edgecombe to take a leap next season. Even though I'm interested in seeing how this ball movement's going to work with Jaylen Brown now being in the mix of this as well. But I want to go to the Jaylen Brown, Paul George factor of this as well. What if Paul George had been able to stay healthy and just sustain just being in a consistent 18 points per game for this team? Are you honestly still focused on Joel Embiid's health at that point and how vital that really is for the team throughout the duration of the season?
I'm going to tell you why, yes. Because of the fact that we saw because right now, if you have any concerns about Philly, the main concerns would be you're concerned about will they stay healthy during the season, and you're more so concerned about Joel Embiid because of the fact that we saw him get picked on by Cat in that second round matchup. We saw that. And then also their bench. Their bench isn't great. The Anthony Simons signing helped. It definitely helped bolster their bench up because right now I couldn't really name too many people on that bench outside of the draft picks. And then also you're talking about you're talking about they're going to need Joel Embiid if they're going to make a deep playoff run. What capacity, I'm saying, it's not going to be the Joel Embiid of old because I think Maxey's role, this is more of, before Jaylen Brown got there, like I said, I don't really care whose team it is. I just know that the talent will work itself out because Jaylen Brown is going to benefit from playing with Tyrese Maxey and vice versa. So I think that it's just more so having that paint present because, like I said, if you're running out of potential lineup of Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown, Dean Wade, Joel Embiid, you do need some significant size in the middle as a rim protector. I know that you have everything figured out as far as your guards, wings, but I think that you do need to have a significant rim protector if you're going to go up against a New York team that is coming off of a championship because of the fact that Cat can stretch the floor, he can play inside, and I think that, I think it is going to come down to Embiid because I think that New York is still going to be tough because New York pretty much outside of Mitchell Robinson, they retained most of their championship team. They retained most of it. They signed Landry Shamet back. They got guys back that played a significant role in that championship team. So I think that when you're talking about making a deep playoff run, because do I think that they can beat the majority of the East? Absolutely. But I think that Joel Embiid being out there, even if he's not the Joel Embiid of old, he does give a significant threat to that team because now you have you have 5 scorers on the floor. You have a shooter in Dean Wade, and then you have 4 guys that can play on the perimeter and attack the rim. I think that Jaylen Brown being a significant 3-and-D player, VJ Edgecombe being, he's no slouch on defense as well. And then Tyrese Maxey continuing to take the leaps that he's taken. Yeah, I think they're a problem for sure. I think that just having that paint presence is the reason why I brought up Joel Embiid, just because I feel like if you have a formidable shot blocker at the rim, even if you're not worried about, going to the rim, you have that thought in your mind, like Joel Embiid may block this if I take it inside. And that goes for like Jalen Brunson or any of these other guards in the Eastern Conference that, because outside of that, that's your real size right there. Other than that, I don't know what you would do as far as size goes when you go against these teams in the playoffs.
No, that's absolutely valid. I agree with that point with what you said right there, especially about the big man presence down low. I dig that 100%. Deb, before you chime in on this, I also would like to say this about it as well. For Nick Nurse, does this not somewhat feel like a bit of deja vu from 2018? Think about it. He's getting one of the top young players in the world, just like he got with Kawhi Leonard, who's leaving a situation. The only difference is Kawhi Leonard had spent most of the past season battling an injury, and Jaylen Brown did not. That's the only difference about it to me, because I feel like where Kawhi Leonard was around 2017, 2018 is where Jaylen Brown actually is now. But Deb, in terms of where Philly is in the Eastern Conference right now, do you agree with what I said, or am I overplaying this a little?
I do think they're a solid 2 now. Cleveland is kind of the X factor to me. Like, I don't really trust them, and I don't trust Philadelphia either. But I trust Philadelphia more than I trust Cleveland. But the only thing to me is I don't think Joel Embiid is like, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think the team's success doesn't hinge on him anymore, I think, with this move. Like, I feel like they are, and they should be, and probably should have been doing this already, looking towards life after Embiid, because it's pretty clear, much like Paul George, the last several years, Embiid has not been able to stay on the court. This knee is not going to get any better. I don't think. Like, the older you get, it doesn't work like that. That's just not how life works. So I think that this move feels like hey, we need to bolster ourselves up to the point that we don't have to rely on Joel Embiid. And I do feel like Jaylen Brown, like, to your Kawhi Leonard comparison, I feel like Jaylen Brown is in a similar trajectory to him, minus the injuries. I think, like, you look at, he slightly was a little more established, I think, but like Leonard I'm talking about. But you look at Jaylen Brown's trajectory with the Celtics. I mean, the amount of winning they did together, like developing the way he did alongside Jaylen Brown to the point that you become a Finals MVP, a Conference Finals MVP, and you win a championship, obviously. And I think that it won't be as much of an adjustment for Jaylen Brown, because we saw him do it with Jason Tatum, where the two of them were able to coexist in a way, like, when people thought that it wasn't a fit for them, but they were like, yes, it is, and he was able to coexist with Tatum. I think he'll fit in well with Maxey and with Edgecombe, and I think the other part of that is, like, you can run so many different lineups with the three of them because he can guard so many positions. And the Simons helps them, because we all know, like, when they traded Jared McCain, like, that was just probably one of the more confusing decisions that Daryl Morey made before he was ultimately let go. And I think that, Maxey needs somebody in the second unit so that they don't have to rely so much on him. And I think Jaylen Brown could even become that guy as well, just as another ball handler. So I would put Philadelphia in second place right now over the Cavs, but it's not like a huge gap. I think we still got to see what it looks like on the court.
We all agree on the second place, but I don't know. Maybe I believe in what Jaylen Brown is a little bit more than a lot more people do, because I don't believe that gap is honestly too far at all. I don't believe that gap is too close at all. Like, I honestly believe that Philly is exponentially better than them today, because they added one of the best two-way players on the planet. Like, they added a guy who plays both sides of the ball. But I mentioned Kawhi Leonard, and that takes us into our next subject, because he is going back to the Toronto Raptors, fellas. The place he left in 2019 after he led them to a championship that same exact season. Well, he's going back there. He was traded there earlier this week for Brandon Ingram and several draft picks. My thoughts simply on this are, one, he never should have left. When you look at the roster that they had, he never should have left. That Fred VanVleet was developing. Pascal Siakam was becoming something. OG Anunoby, who we didn't even see in the 2019 playoff run because he had appendicitis. Kyle Lowry was still there. But more importantly than anything, and Dev, you talked about this in our group chat earlier this week, Masai Ujiri was still the architect of that team. He was still the general manager and president of basketball operations. So Kawhi Leonard going back to Toronto, hey, it's a nice feel-good story, but I don't necessarily think, KB, that this is going to end up being what some other people think it's going to be. I listened to so many shows this week on TV talk about this move, And you got them saying, oh, Raptors got action now. Yeah, this is a championship contending team now. I don't know about that. Kawhi Leonard is 35 years old. This is not like it was in 2018, 2019 when this move happened. He's 35. That roster's not the same. And everybody still has like this very high belief when it comes to Scotty Barnes. He is a very good player, but he has not taken the leap to what I think people honestly believe he should be yet. Can he do it with Kawhi Leonard alongside him? We'll see. But it's a nice move. It definitely puts Toronto back into the the Eastern Conference playoff conversation. And we're not looking at them like, are you a playoff team or are you a play-in team? No, I definitely think right now, as currently constructed, they're one of the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference. I'm curious to see the other moves that they're going to be able to make here. And one thing about it, it's going to put fans in those seats. Kawhi is a beloved fan favorite in that town, as he should be, being the guy that helped lead them to their first franchise championship.
Yeah, I'm still kind of trying to figure out this move as well, like because, like you said, the supporting cast isn't the same from what it was coming off that championship a couple years ago. So it is a little bit different. You moved off of not only Brandon Ingram, but a young guy in Grady Dick as well. So now you're talking about there are still remnants of a playoff team there. It's not like they gave up like a bunch of like rotation players. So you still have guys like Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett. You have some younger pieces that you're still, hoping that can develop. But I don't know, X, for some reason, I look at this team as I can't really say that I look at them as being in that top 5 yet right now because I don't know how it's going to look. Necessarily, I understand the duo of Scotty Barnes and Kawhi Leonard, if healthy, I can understand that being a great, two-way duo that can play offense, that can go get their own and on defense as well. But I'm
You got to
looking at
include RJ Barrett in that too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. But it's just like, for me, it's kind of like where I rank them. It would have been, if it was going to be a playoff team, it would have been one of those 7, 8 playoff teams, just because I'm looking at it like when we're talking about possibly even 6, but it wasn't going to be on the top end of the Eastern Conference just because I have teams I feel like are just better top to bottom than them.
Okay, can you list who those teams are? Because I want to hear this.
I got New York. I got Boston still not number 2, but I got Boston still because I feel like in a 7-game series, I do feel like that Boston would beat them in a 7-game series.
So you feel like in a 7-game series, if Kawhi Leonard is out there 100% healthy, ready to go, he would not be able to will
That's what we don't know yet.
Over that current iteration of the Boston Celtics?
That's what we don't know yet because a lot of that is contingent on if he's healthy. But I'll go ahead and name out the rest. I don't think they're better than Miami. I don't think that they're better than I wouldn't say necessarily right now Indiana is a playoff team just because I don't feel like just adding Tyrese Halliburton back into the mix is enough. But I mean, you got Cleveland still, and a lot of that's going to be the contingent on if they can get like a LeBron James to come back. But yeah,
are they better in your mind than Orlando? Just based off of what Orlando has on paper. And the fact that they have a new head coach coming in, and Sean Sweeney, the associate head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, who came over.
That's where I would rank them. Either they're going to be 6 or they're going to be 7 because, like I said, it's either going to be Orlando or Toronto. But I will give Toronto the slight edge just because they have a Kawhi Leonard and Orlando doesn't, because that's the difference for me.
Okay, now, I got to throw another team at you that you did not mention. Are they better than the Detroit Pistons?
No. I know with all the talks about Jaylen Brown, I know about all of that. I know what they've lost as well, but no, I don't think that they're better than Detroit. Until I see it, I don't think they're better than Detroit because, like I said, it's going to be one of those situations where Detroit, they may have learned a little bit of something from the way that they ended last season. They got into a dogfight in round 1. And I think that they they right their wrongs. I do believe that John Collins signing to Detroit actually helped them a lot more. I think that's a better scheme fit for him. So I do think that Detroit is a better team right now. The Atlanta Hawks are a team that I'm looking at like possibly going back to the play-in based off of everything that's transitioned this. Yeah, it hurts me, man.
Why did you even mention them? You know that they do not belong in this conversation right now.
I know, but I'm just talking about teams that made the playoffs last year. If I'm going off of that, I gotta go and say like why I feel like that they will not go back to the playoffs, because I felt like that a lot of the teams in the East reloaded, they revamped their rosters, and the Hawks did the exact same thing that they made the mistake of doing in 2021. They ran it back with literally the same group, minus Kuminga right now, because you don't know if he's even going to be back. With them, yeah, I feel like that somebody's going to go out there and grab them. So I think that it comes down to it. If I'm looking at Toronto, I feel like they're on that little 6 or lower, because, like I said, if Kawhi's not there for the majority of the season, they could be in a lot of trouble when it comes to late game situations, because I'm not as high on RJ Barrett as some people. I'm really not.
I'm high on him. I'm high on him as that team's number 3 option.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, sometimes I feel like it could alternate between him and Quickly if Quickly's healthy, because I feel like Quickly can hit big shots as well. But I think that when it comes down to it, I just have some teams that I feel like have superstars that I know are going to be out there for the majority of the time. And with Kawhi Leonard, if he's out there majority of the time, yeah, we can have a whole different conversation about it. But I think that that's going to be one of those things, because, like you said, Scotty Barnes hasn't taken the necessarily leap that some other guys have that were drafted in his class. And so it's kind of like, for me, I don't know exactly what I'm going to get with that team. Like, it's good. I don't see them as a championship contender. It's just one of those things I don't see right now.
No, I don't see him as a championship contender either, but I do see him as one of the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference. And we also have to remember that we're probably not going to guess at who it is. There's always a team every single year in each conference who emerges in that playoff conversation that nobody really saw coming. Dev, where do you sit on where you currently have the Toronto Raptors ranked and just overall this Kawhi Leonard trade?
I didn't think anything of it. It didn't move me one way or the other. I felt like Toronto was a playoff team last year without him. They're probably going to be a playoff team again this year with him. I feel like they were what seed were they last year when they played Cleveland? I don't remember.
They were the number 5 seed.
So yeah, they're about middle of the pack. I still feel like they're right there, because like you guys were naming the teams, like they're not better than New York. They're not better than Boston, even with the current version of them. In my opinion, they're not better than Cleveland. The only ones, and they're not better than Detroit either. The only ones that I think they're above are Orlando and Atlanta, since they made it last year. But like, I don't see like you guys said, Kawhi is this a different version of Kawhi. He's 35. I think his reputation has taken a bit of a hit from being in LA. So and then if he would have came into the team that, they obviously traded some pieces away. If it would have been last year's team and then you add Kawhi, I would have felt better. But you're trading pieces even though, like you can say what you want about Brandon Ingram, but like I feel like with Kawhi, I think he would have been better versus trading him away. And I don't know. Toronto doesn't move me one way or the other, right? With this.
Hey, Dev, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
And X, I want you to go ahead. So we were talking about the rankings, right? So let's go through them again, just for everybody out there listening and everybody watching. Are they better than New York?
No.
Are they better than Philly?
No.
Miami?
I don't know yet.
Okay, so undecided. Boston?
No.
Cleveland?
No.
Detroit?
No.
So at worst, we're talking about possibly 6. Possibly 6.
Yeah, which they were 5 last year, so they're right where they were.
And then, so we're talking about that's why I told you, X, we're not talking about moving them completely out the playoff picture. We're talking about possibly moving them a slot down, because we're talking about teams that made significant leaps in in the offseason. And then you were talking.
I get what you're saying with that, but I need both of y'all right now to explain to me what you see for the Boston Celtics next season that I'm not seeing. You must see Jason Tatum emerging into top 3 MVP candidate type of play, Paul George being consistently healthy, and Peyton Pritchard also taking another leap for this team. Because those are the only 3 scenarios that are going to happen for the Boston Celtics to be one of the top teams in that conference next season.
Do you consider Kawhi Leonard top 3 in MVP conversation or consistently healthy as well?
No, but y'all are talking about the Celtics like they're at the top echelons of the Eastern Conference, quite honestly.
They are.
They have been, at least. And then, yeah, go ahead, Dev. Go ahead, Dev.
I saw Jaylen Brown do this last year. I've never seen Jason Tatum do this. And I don't question Jason Tatum's talent, but I do question his durability now going forward. Until I see him do this for a full season again and look like the Jason Tatum that we saw before the Achilles injury, and even better than that, there's no way I think that the Toronto Raptors are better than this current iteration of the Boston Celtics.
So I think only because this is the first season Tatum's missed for an injury this significant, I'm not going to label him injury prone yet. Now, if he comes into this year and is missing big chunks of the season, then I'm going to have some concern. But Tatum, like you said, I'm never going to question his talent. But I just feel like he's won a lot. Even like, yeah, he's only won 1 championship, but I mean, he's been to multiple conference finals. I mean, pretty much since he walked into the league. Like, he has done enough for me to not question him. Now, the rest of the team, we can talk. But as long as Jason Tatum is fully healthy, at least in the regular season, Boston is top 4 in the East with him.
Yeah, we got Lawrence coming on in part 2, and I'm gonna definitely have to ask him his thoughts on this. There is no way I'm the only person sitting on an island on this conversation. KB, I'm gonna go back to your initial question. I want to throw health. I want to throw health completely out of it for a second, because health changes anything for any of these teams.
Right.
I've seen Jason Tatum shy away during big moments.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Kawhi Leonard rise up to the occasion during big moments. Health not being a factor, yes, for that reason in particular alone, that is why I say Toronto is better than this current iteration of the Boston Celtics.
Okay. And I look at it like what you're saying because until it happens, yes, I know you swap out Jaylen Brown for Paul George. I know that it's gonna look at a lot of people like, that's kind of rough. But one thing I know about the Celtics, they usually have quality minutes from their starters, and their starters being Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. I'm going to hinge on the fact that Mitchell Robinson can give them something on the defensive end and be a lob threat also. Now, the reason why I say that Toronto is a middle of the pack team, yeah, I've seen Kawhi do it, but I've also seen Jason Tatum, have many nights, and he's been in deep playoff runs since he's been in the league. So I do feel like that now it is going to fall on him. There is no 1A, 1B type of situation. He is the de facto number 1 on that team, and he is going to have to get it done. But at worst, Jason Tatum is still a top 3 small forward in the league. And that's at worst because of the fact that he is one of those guys that can go create his own shot. He can play defense, even though that he had a Jaylen Brown with him. He can play defense. Now, the reason why I'm not so sold on the Toronto Raptors is because, yeah, they made the playoffs without Kawhi Leonard last year. But you also have to think about it. They were a couple of things away from them not even being the top 5 seed. If the Hawks had not sat starters on one of their games, they would have been the 6th seed. So they would have been the 6th seed no matter what if the Hawks didn't sit their starters. So we're not talking about it like that, they're going to just go from being a playoff team to a non-playoff team. No, I just think that they're going to be on the lower end of being a playoff team. If Kawhi Leonard is healthy, yeah, you can bank on his health as far as like that's going to be the deciding factor, which it is for a lot of teams. But I'm just not sold by the rest of this roster. Yeah, he's great, but when I look at Scotty Barnes, when I look at Emmanuel Quickly, when I look at RJ Barrett, when I look at some of the other guys that they have, Jamal Shedd, like I'm not so sold on this roster in totality as far as like them being a top 5 seed, because I just don't know, outside of Kawhi Leonard and Scotty Barnes, I don't know exactly what the rest of them are going to give me, because I told you I'm not that high on RJ Barrett, and for a reason being, like, yeah, he had a decent season last year, but since he's been in the league, what season can you pinpoint for him and say, yeah, he looks like a future star, not superstar, future star? That's what I'm looking. They're going to need a number 3 that's going to step up in those late game moments when they're doubling Kawhi, when they're possibly even doubling Scotty Barnes, and they need somebody to get their own shot. Yeah, we know that he can get his own shot, but can he do it consistently through an 82 game season? That's what I need to see.
I think that RJ Barrett will develop as a star in his role next season. So I think he can develop into being that guy that you go to down the stretch who's not named Kawhi Leonard, who can be the closer, because I don't see that being Scotty Barnes' role. I see Scotty Barnes being their most important 3 and D guy who's going to play both sides of the court.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Kawhi is going to be the best player. I think Scotty's going to hold the most value because of, he's going to be, regardless of if Kawhi plays a bunch of games or not, he's going to be the most durable player on that team, because I think that he's going to be there. He's going to still be their 3 and D threat as far as being able to be out there consistently, guard the other team's best player when Kawhi is not always there. Because we know it's going to be games where Kawhi's going to need rest. He's going to need it. He's going to need some type of load management, regardless of what's going on, because of the fact that he's not that same. He doesn't have that same type of durability that he had earlier on in his career. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of like when. I'm not wishing injury, but still, I think that we just got to be aware of that's what's going to happen eventually.
Dev, what are your final thoughts on this Toronto piece? Because we got another piece on this that we got to touch on that we haven't talked about at all.
So yeah, I just think Kawhi will elevate them slightly, but not enough to over like the top 3 teams. We kind of know who they are. It's can they kind of make inroads from 4 to 6? They could. I think they could. I just have to see it. And then I also still like Tatum has to convince me that he's just not that guy. And I just am not ready to go there yet. Now we'll see, because this will be his first season without Jaylen Brown. So we'll see. But I think Tatum is up for it for that. So I think that being said, I think Toronto is still kind of just be where they were last year, just slightly better. And I think, yeah, Kawhi is going to be good for them, but not like great, I guess, if that makes sense.
I'm going to wrap that part of the conversation up because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole once again. I do want to talk about the Brandon Ingram factor in this, though, because we haven't talked about that at all. Him being the prize piece that's going to the Los Angeles Clippers. Number one, another underwhelming era of Los Angeles Clippers basketball has came to an end, ladies and gentlemen. There was nothing significant winning-wise that happened with that duo of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and a good cast of role players that they had around them. Remember when this trade went down in 2019, the Clippers were immediately, and rightfully so because of where Kawhi Leonard and Paul George were as players in the league. You can argue that they both were, well, Kawhi Leonard definitely a top 5 player in the league at the time. Paul George definitely a top 8 player in the league at the time. They immediately were catapulted to the championship conversation. The closest they ever got was 2021 when they made a Western Conference Finals run. I give them a little grace for that, considering that Kawhi Leonard did tear his ACL in the series before against the Utah Jazz. Other than that, they did nothing. There was no significant winning. The biggest disappointment had to be when they were in the bubble, up 3-1 on the Denver Nuggets, and completely failed to close that deal. So no championships end up coming out of this. No significant individual awards came out of this because Kawhi Leonard nor Paul George won an MVP or a Defensive Player of the Year award during any of this. And we can finally put to rest that awful quote that Patrick Beverley said when all of this went down. The last 5 years were Steph's, the next 5 years are mine. We can finally put that officially to rest. I put it to rest a long time ago anyway. I thought it was a joke when he came out and said it to begin with, but we can finally put that to rest. The Clippers can move forward. Fellas, do y'all think that Brandon Ingram can take that leap towards being the star and the face that the Clippers need him to be, or has that ship sailed?
How old is he?
He is 28.
He got about, this is probably his last chance to do it. I'm gonna just put it that way. Like, I think he won't want to hear this, but I think he's in a situation where don't nobody give a damn about the Clippers. And so ain't nobody really gonna be checking for them, especially with the Lakers doing what they've been doing in free agency. I think there's not any pressure on him. Like, I mean, technically there is, but like there's no pressure on him to be like the man in LA, like it would be if he were with the Lakers. So I think he could be that guy. I think he's still got a chance to do it, but he's running out of time.
I'll just put it like this before KB chimes in. That brand new, beautiful arena, the Intuit Dome, yeah, they're going to have some missing seats in there next year.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of like, dude, this your last chance. I mean, I seen little spurts of it in LA. I seen little spurts of it in New Orleans. Even seen little spurts of it in Toronto. But this just goes to show everybody ain't Kevin Durant. Every 6'9", 6'10" guy that can shoot the ball ain't Kevin Durant. And I remember that comparison to him coming out of college, and it was kind of just like, it's a lot more intangibles than just that. I understand when people see a tall, lanky guy that can shoot the ball, immediate Kevin Durant comparisons come up, but no. And honestly, I'm not even really looking forward to what Brandon Ingram can do. I'm looking forward to see what the rookie Keaton Wagler can do. I want to see more of what he can do and what he can be for that team going forward than Brandon Ingram. And it's because right now, like you said, you going back to, like, you back in the Lakers shadow once again. You don't have the star names. You don't have the the aura of the arena, like how what Crypto.com arena has, or I still call it Staples Center, but Crypto.com arena. So you don't have that. You don't have all the celebrities coming to your game. You don't have that de facto superstar like the Lakers do with Luka Doncic. You're back in the shadows again. Now for me, I would say, like, the Clippers need to focus more on the development of their young guys. You have you moved off Kawhi because you see the youth movement going on in LA right now for the Clippers. So I think that if he is going to get it, it's going to be now, because he's going to be looked at as one of the main vets on the team. It's going to be like one of those things where the young guys come to look at him for wisdom. They looking at him for, like, hey, we down late, we need to get a ball to. We got to give it to you because you've been in these situations before. Some of these young guys haven't done that. So I look at it like Dev said, this is your last chance, bro. But after this, I don't want to hear about can he develop into this or this at this point, because if he doesn't get it done this season with the Clippers, I think we've seen what Brandon Ingram is. I think this is just who he is as a player. Like, he's good, not great, but he's good.
Y'all are being generous. I'm not saying that this is his last chance. I believe the ship has sailed. This is over. He's going to put up some good numbers for them, but in terms of what it's going to mean for their winning, yeah, I don't see it really contributing to much. This is officially a rebuilding situation. If they do anything, this is a chance for Tyronn Lue to show us once again that he is still one of the elite coaches in the game. And that's been a question and conversation for at least the past 2 seasons now. So if they do anything next season, I'm more than likely going to look at what Ty Lue has done compared to what Brandon Ingram has done. And that's not as a slight or a knock, as a disrespect to him, but it's just that I saw this in New Orleans and I also saw it in Toronto. And if you didn't have Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett there with you in Toronto, I don't think it turns into what it ultimately turned into for them. So we'll see what happens. But like Dev said, nobody's really going to be paying attention to this anymore. Like, the Clippers are officially off the radar once again, unless they can surprise some people. and make a leap in what is already a very loaded Western Conference. So I don't see that happening, but we all could end up being wrong. Dev, we appreciate you joining in on the show, bro. We know you're gonna be back soon, and like I said, we're gonna be on the lookout for episode 2 of your next venture for sure.
Appreciate it. If you guys want to keep watch on it, follow Unique Verse TV on YouTube. So it's UNIQ Verse TV, and it's on YouTube. So that's usually where I'm assuming the second episode is going to be dropped. If it's not, I'll come back and let y'all know.
All right, y'all heard it there from the man himself. So it is Unique Verse TV on YouTube. Y'all tune in to the great work that they are putting forward and they're doing to spotlight the local kids in the DMV, DC area. Like we just appreciate ventures like that so much. And Deb, we'll see you back here again soon, bro, for sure.
Gotcha.
All right, KB, it's time to get into some quick hitters, man, because there were some more moves that happened in the NBA this week that honestly, it kind of feels like it happened a long time ago, but they happened here at the very start of this week. The most significant one was Ja Morant being traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. The Memphis Grizzlies finally were able to get off that move. I view this as two different things. Number one, I think that this comeback story for Ja Morant is going to be legendary because I still believe in him. And I believe that putting him with somebody like Damian Lillard is like the perfect mentor that you can put in there with the guy like that. He's not going to wear number 12 anymore. He's going to be wearing jersey number 1. So we'll see if that has any significance there as well. I just look at it as Ja embracing this as a new beginning. And honestly, that's what he needed. I just think he needed a change of scenery out of Memphis and what was going on with that organization. Also, though, I do believe that this could just be a business move that Nike got involved in too, because he is a Nike signature shoe guy. The headquarters are in Oregon. Portland plays in Oregon. Nike could have honestly made a call on this to the Portland Trail Blazers to like budge them so that they could take a look on this investment that they've made, because no doubt about it, there's been a drop off with him in the past few seasons. But I believe he can get that back. And like I said, he is a Nike signature shoe guy whose shoes are actually a top seller for them.
Yeah, I think that things just ran their course in Memphis. I think that with Ja, he needed that change of scenery. And I think, honestly, last few seasons have looked the way they have looked because I felt like at one point he lost his joy. I think he lost all the things that made that Grizzlies team special. And I think Ja was, if I'm not mistaken, was the last remaining member of that 2022 squad that went to war with the Warriors in the playoffs. So I think that it's important for Ja to get out there and learn from Dame. And I'm not gonna lie, they could be one of those sneaky teams in the West that could give people problems because, like I said, if you're running a starting lineup out there with Ja and Dame and Denny and Klingon, I think that, they can make something happen. I think that it's more for them to, like Ja, his redemption story. I'm just right there with you. I think that his redemption story is going to be legendary because I still believe in his talent. I think that Ja has a way of him that I think that a lot of people, of course, talk about the off the court stuff. They talk about the antics and everything, but I do believe in Ja's talent. And for a young guy like that, you don't just give up on talent like that, like this early into his career. I know, what I'm saying, it was a few troubled things that went on in Memphis. I think that a lot of it, we talked about it before. A lot of it had to go back to when, Taylor Jenkins was fired. I think that also played a part into him having a sour relationship with the Memphis Grizzlies. And if you had told me a couple of years ago that Ja, Trey, and LaMelo would have all been traded like simultaneously back to back to back, I probably would have called you a liar. Just off of the talent that I saw from those three alone, I just couldn't see it. But this is something that he can look at it one or two ways. He can look to sulk or he look to embrace. And I think that he's going to embrace this new chapter. It's a new number, new chapter. He gets away from, he can finally silence the critics with this upcoming season. He can silence all the critics right here. And he's going to go into a situation where he's going to have a city behind him, because one thing about Portland that we know, they love their team. They love their team. There's an avid basketball culture up there. They love the Trailblazers. And I think that they are going to find themselves in a situation where like I said, they could be a sneaky playoff team. Possibly. I could see it. Like you said, I think that he can't learn from anybody better than Dame on how to be a constant professional, how to carry yourself, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, Dame has got a lot to prove. So I think this is going to be a prove-it season for the Trailblazers. So I think this is going to be a good one.
You mentioned those 3-point guards. I'm going to tell you 3-point guards that this whole scenario kind of reminds me of in the 2000s that we saw a lot of promise for, and then things kind of ended up going a bit off of a cliff, and they just didn't culminate into what people necessarily thought they were going to be. Steve Francis, Baron Davis, Cuttino Mobley. That's what that whole 3 thing reminds me of. Because remember, those were 3 guards in the 2000s that people were all looking at like, man, this is the future of the NBA right here, along with names like Kobe and Vince Carter. Now, Kobe and Vince Carter on a totally different level, but those were 3 exciting young guards in the 2000s that people were looking at. And then it kind of turned out to be, okay, kind of is what it is. They all 3 of them had good careers, by the way. Baron Davis probably the best out of those 3 in terms of where his career ended up going, especially with the We Believe Warriors in 07 and everything. But you get what I'm saying. There was a lot of movement involving those 3.
And I think it's for like they have to be a star in their role, because I think that each of these point guards does something significantly better than the others. Like Dame being a lights out shooter, also can get the offense involved. Ja being the athletic guy that he is, can rim run, attack. And you know what I'm saying? If he gets his 3-point shot to at least respectable, then you have a different conversation. And then, you know, I think this could push Scoot as well. I still think that somebody's going to be like, because don't they still have Drew Holiday as well? Yeah, so you have 4 guys that can play. And I think that, you know, this is going to be one of those situations where I feel like this could be, somebody could be used at possibly trade bait going into like the deadline next year. I think that there's going to be a thing where you're going to have to find room for all of these guys to get minutes, because all of these guys are extremely talented. Like I think Scoot can definitely, you know, learn from guys that have been in the league. And, you know, I seen flashes from Scoot last year as well. I did see a few games where Scoot looked like the guy that they thought they were getting number 2 overall. So I do believe, I'm sorry, what is it, number 3 overall, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was number 3 overall, and I hear you when you talk about hear you when you talk about those flashes. But here's the thing: I think those flashes, if they're gonna culminate into something, they're gonna culminate into something for another team. He is the guy that I think will be the odd man out ultimately in all of this.
Yeah, I think so. Because I look at like a lot of teams are looking at him and they say that we'll bank on the upside, we'll bank on the potential, because we just need to see a little bit more of it consistently. And I think that it's a different thing when you're running out there with that second unit a lot, because of the fact that you may be the main guy on that second unit. You can play a little bit more free as opposed to playing in that starting lineup. And you have your, last season at least, your proven superstar in Denny Avdia, who's still ascending in his own right. So you have players, like I think Portland, they have talent. They do. I think Shaedon Sharp still being there, he plays another, you know, he factors into the equation. So I think that they just got to make it work. That's why I say, and coaching is going to come down to a lot, because you're going to have to find minutes for all of these guys, because you got a plethora of young guys that can play, and then you got vets that also are going to help out. So, I mean, I don't know what to make of them as of yet, because I got to see it first. But they're going to be an exciting team. I can tell you that. They're going to be exciting out there in Portland. It's going to be something that they've been probably needing over the last couple of seasons, because last year with Tiago Splitter at the helm, I saw some potential there. I saw some potential that they could be something in a few years.
I don't know where their placement will be in the Western Conference. I agree with you about them being an exciting team. But what I will say is that Micah Nori is already showing his leadership as a head coach. And I'm going to say this, and that's going to close out the segment on this. He flew to South Carolina this week, KB, to meet with Ja Morant. They had lunch at a steakhouse, I believe, just to like really pick his brain and see what is it that he's looking for out of this. What does he want to get out of this? And Ja said reportedly, I want to get back to my old self. And maybe he means his old self as a player. And I still believe that is there. Yes, we want to see Ja get back to his old self, but more importantly, I just want to see that man having joy playing basketball again. Because in 2021 and 2022 and 2023, Ja Morant was one of the most electrifying shows in all of basketball.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you looked at how much joy, how much passion, and how fast he played, like the crowd, like in Memphis, you couldn't tell that they didn't think that they had their guy at that point because he showed what he was capable of. We saw it. That playoff series against the Warriors, had he not got hurt, we don't know what could have happened. We don't know because we saw what he was doing to them beforehand. So when he got hurt, it was a whole different basketball team. We even saw it in the first round matchup against OKC. We saw he goes out. They weren't the same. So it was more so. I think that Ja has to just get back to having fun because you could tell certain things were going on that were not necessarily basketball related. He wasn't having fun out there. And so I think that this is just more about getting his joy back and his passion back.
I want to the pitch real quick, man. Talk a little soccer because the U.S. men's national team, they are moving on to the round of 16 after their win over Bosnia and Herzegovina on Wednesday. And I'm starting to get excited for this team, KB. Now, I don't Fowler Balogun not being out there in the round of 16 matchup coming up on Monday could hurt. But that's where Christian Pulisic got to step up and he got to make his money. And he got to show that why he's the face of the team because Fowler's been doing his thing, man. And Malik Tillman's been doing his thing too. But they defeated Bosnia and Herzegovina 2-0. That extra goal coming after Fowler Balogun was issued a red card. And that was controversial how that happened. You can make an argument that it should have just been a yellow card. But since it was a red card, he is going to be suspended for the next matchup. I don't know what to make of this Belgium team yet. I haven't really been watching them. But I'm excited for what our team has been putting out there. Like, it feels like there's a magic that's in the air about this team.
Yeah, and how many times can you say that you said that about USA soccer? Like, I think that they've found a way to, ride this momentum. Now that red card and the possible suspension in the round of 16 is going to be very crucial. But like you said, I don't think it's like a foregone conclusion that they can't get it done without Flarin. I think that it's more of those things that they're going to need Christian Pulisic to actually like put on a superstar effort. And he's going to have to get it done more so than anybody else because, like I said, he is the captain of that team. And when I look at it, this is going to be one of those things where this United States team can do something very significant, which, we've seen in the past that, it's not been the easiest thing for the United States to get through to even just around the 16. So I think that, everyone in the United States is behind them. It's going to be a very interesting round of 16s. We have a bunch of key matchups that are going to they're going to shape this World Cup. And I think that we're going to see one with United States and Belgium. Like I said, we saw Portugal, they advanced as well. So it's going to be very interesting how this round of 16 goes. And I'm even if you're not a fan of soccer necessarily, you got to pay attention to what's going on. These are some of the most exciting games. This is some of the most exciting times that you're going to have as far as sports goes because the World Cup bringing in so much attention, so much like going on for the economy. It's just a lot going on. So you just got to be able to witness what's going on in real time because it's special.
That round of 16 matchup going to take place at Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington on Monday at 8 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. You got two more quick hitters to get to, man, and this is some sad news. The first one being earlier this week when everybody learned that Chris Johnson, CJ2K, the legendary running back from the Tennessee Titans, announced to the world on Good Morning America that he is battling ALS. And it just absolutely broke my heart, KB, to see that clip and to see that this man cannot even hold a cup anymore. He can't really do for himself too much anymore. And like you could honestly see the hurt and the pain also in Michael Strahan's eyes during that too. He was diagnosed in 2025. And in just a year's time, man, he went from being able to pick up his daughter to not even being able to pick up a cup. It just goes to show you how precious that life really is, man.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to his wife, his kids, the family. She's strong. She's staying beside him, doing everything she can to help guide him through all of this. I really hope that one day they are able to find a cure for ALS because some know it as the Lou Gehrig disease, some know it as ALS, but we know how fast this disease progresses, and the fact that one of a guy that we grew up watching. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't play. Everybody only probably use CJ 2K at one point on Madden, or grew up emulating him. So it just sucks to see it just because of the fact that you see all the old videos of where he was just a year ago to now not even being able to speak without using the device that he has to use, not being able to do the things that he was so accustomed to using. He already had said that he was in the prime of his life. He was playing with his kids, they were working out, they were doing everything together. So now that just
He was
shows you.
he was scouting players for teams, all types
Yeah.
of stuff, man.
Yeah, so it's just real sad. It's a really unfortunate situation. Prayers out to him. I hope the NFL does something for his family, helps him out in some way, even if it might not be the biggest gesture, just something. Anything can help out. Donating to his. I think he has a fundraiser going on as well. Donating to that for like anybody who out there can donate. Help just anything that help him and his family out because right now they need everybody that they can to be behind them because that's not easy news to hear at all.
We see the ice bucket challenge is back. I'm glad to see that the ice bucket challenge is back. I see some of the guys who have participated in it. Saw Marshawn Lynch, some of the other guys who participated in this recently. For you younger ones out there who didn't get a chance to see Chris Johnson play in his prime, I'm just gonna sum it up like this: there's fast, and then there's stupid fast. Chris Johnson was stupid fast. Go watch the clips. Go watch the highlights. And it's not like just some mirage. No, that is who Chris Johnson was when he was on his prime with the Tennessee Titans. And he's one of 9 players to be in that 2,000 yards rushing club. Chris Johnson, hey man, us here at the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast, hey man, we're praying for you. We love you, man, and keep fighting the fight. That's all we can say. We don't know where the fight ends up, but keep fighting the fight and praying really hard that there is able to be a cure found for this disease that is honestly starting to become a little bit more of a normality. KB, it used to just be rare cases where we would hear about this. We're starting to hear more and more about it now, unfortunately. And then that other piece of sad news this week, man, all prayers, love, condolences, everything to Calais Campbell and his family. His mother was found unresponsive in her home in Atlanta this week. Calais is Campbell. One of his brothers has been charged, and they believe that he is responsible for her murder with a knife or a firearm. And man, that was absolutely gut wrenching, heartbreaking news to see that this week too, because Calais Campbell's mom had basically been one of the moms of the NFL throughout his time in the league. You saw her on certain shows. You saw her with the soup commercials as well after Donovan McNabb had retired, and his mom had kind of let it go. KB Calais Campbell's mom had stepped up to the plate and picked that up, and it's just a lot going on in this world right now, man. And one thing about it, ladies and gentlemen, kindness is free. It costs nothing to be kind to people.
Yeah, I mean that was some real sad news because it's almost like you grieving two people: the loss of your mother and your brother as well, and the fact that you've heard certain stories about like children doing stuff to their parents. So it's not easy, especially with someone that you've seen in the public eye a lot. So I think that it's just very important to put, he needs the embrace of others as well right now because Calais Campbell, he's been one of the biggest spokespersons for the NFL of pretty much his career. And so I think that Calais needs he needs he needs just love and he really needs some type of prayer, some strength from others. Hopefully, he can get that over time because like I said, I know this is one of those things where time does heal everything. I don't think this is one of those things that time was going to heal for him because he's always going to have that piece of him missing with his mom, who, we know he was very close with. I'm not sure about how close he was with this particular brother, but still sad altogether because of the fact that, like you said, you almost grieving two people. Like you grieving the loss of two people, no matter how you want to say it. Yes, very terrible circumstances, but grieving two people at the same time, it's just sad more so than anything because I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Well said. And we'll be right back with part 2 of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast.